Okay, so let's start on this second video now. So what we're going to do, we've already FTP'd into our EVE-NG. So what we're going to do, we're going to do the QFX, sorry, not the QFX, we'll do the vSRX, the security firewall first. Reason being, with the security firewall, you can do switching and bridging and routing as well. So if you can't get hold of the QFX images, or you don't want to use the QFX images, then we can use just the vSRX itself. It's actually quite a very good platform for labbing. Okay, so as we see, we are in the qemu folder of our EVE-NG. So we've navigated to opt, unetlab, addons and qemu. So the first thing we need to do is to make our directory. So I've got a little text file here. I'll add it to the bottom of the video if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're watching it on Udemy, I'll have it attached as a document that you can just download. And I've renamed the folders according to the current image names that I've been given when I downloaded them. So what we're going to do, let's have a little look. We've got our vSRX here. Okay, fantastic. So there's two ways that we can do this. We can either SSH into our EVE-NG machine itself, or we can create the folder within FileZilla itself. However, we do need to be in the SSH terminal to do the file permissions fix at the end of that. So what we'll do it via SSH first. So let's do SSH root at 192.168.1.118 and put, okay, I'm in. Now you may notice that I'm using unetlab. Now unetlab is just another flavor of EVE-NG Pro. It has all the exact same functionality, all the file structure and the commands are exactly the same, and the graphical user interface is also exactly the same. So anything that you're running on EVE-NG is duplicated and identical on unetlab. So let's copy this command line here to make the directory, and we'll paste that in. Okay, so now it should have made the directory in here. So if I refresh this, there we go, we can see right here it's made the directory for us. That's brilliant. Okay, so what we need to do, we now need to rename the file in so it's in a format that EVE-NG can actually read. So in this case it's going to be virtuo or virtuoa, however you pronounce it, .qcal2. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a copy of this file. Reason being is later on when we do our GNS3 topology, it will make it easier to know exactly what we're dealing with. We don't have to deal with the renamed files, we can deal with the original files. Okay, that's brilliant. So it's made a copy of that, and now I'm going to rename that, and it should be virtuoa virtua qcal2. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to upload this into the newly created folder that we've made on FileZilla. We're going to run the fixed file permissions through our SSH session, and then we're going to give it a try and see whether or not the device actually boots up. Okay, so I've navigated to my folder here which contains my images on my local machine, and I'm going to grab the virtua qcal2 and I'm just going to pull it across, drag and drop, and it's going to upload that file. In the meantime, I'm going to copy the file permissions fix, and as soon as it's copied over, we will run this command in the SSH terminal, and then we can give this a try. It shouldn't take too long. Looks like it's at 90. Oh, there you go. It's all done. Okay, so we'll run the command in our SSH terminal. Okay, so that's now fixed the file permissions, so we should now be able to access this particular image within EVE-NG. So let's have a look and see if we can do that. Okay, so now I've logged into my EVE-NG or my unetlab, and let's have a look and see if we can find this file, so for this image. So let's have a look. We go to add an object and nodes, and we scroll down our list. We have our Juniper vSRX next gen, and let's click on that, and you notice we have our 20.3 R1.8. Now if you look here, it's automatically assigning it 2 CPUs and 4 gigs of memory. Okay, and we have 4 Ethernet ports, or 4 gig of Ethernet ports on this particular device. You can increase that if you want, so you can increase that to like 8 or 12 depending on what you're using the device for. So I'll click on save, and it should populate it right here. Okay, and let's click play and see if it boots up. Okay, so we've got a little message saying that the device has started. It looks like it started there. Let's go to the system status. So system status, yeah, we're using a little bit of memory, not a huge amount at the moment because it's still running through its startup script, but that will increase as time goes on. Okay, as you see, I've allocated 20 cores and 40 gigs to this particular version of unetlab or EVE-NG that I'm running. Okay, so let's see if we can open up a terminal. We might not see anything at the moment. Okay, so it's, as we can see on the terminal at the bottom there, it's still trying to process. Okay, we can see now it's starting to load up some data. It looks a little bit strange at the moment, but that will sort itself out as it's going further into the boot process. Now the boot process does take a while, and I'm assuming you don't want to sit here for 15 minutes or so watching this load up, so I'm going to pause the video. In fact, I'll time it to see roughly how long it took. As we see, it's like 2 minutes to 10, and we'll see how long it takes to boot up. So it's taken 23 minutes, that's correct, 23 minutes to boot up the vSRX. It's an exceptionally long time. Now I'm using VirtualBox for my PNet or EVE-NG deployment. In VMware Player or VMware Pro, it does boot up a little bit quicker. However, the first boot is always relatively slow. If this device is rebooted now, it will boot up a little bit faster. And when I say a little bit faster, it will shave some minutes off it. So a little tip is, if ever you're going to be using these particular images, set them to boot and then go make yourself a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, and then come back like 10-15 minutes later and you should be good to go. So as we can see, we're at the login prompt now. So we've got amnesiac, as it can say there. So this has not had any configuration on it. So let's see if we can log in. So log in with root, and as we see, there was no password, and it's put us straight into the root shell. So we CLI. We just wait for that to go through. See, as you may have seen earlier on, I'm using like 40 odd gigs of memory, and I'm using 20 cores on this particular virtual deployment. I'm using a HP server to run Linux on. However, it's still a little slow to get going, but it does speed up as time goes by. So let's do a show interface terse and see whether or not the interfaces have loaded up. See, they've not loaded up at the moment. It takes a little while for the packet forwarding engine and the routing engine to start communicating correctly with each other. Oh, hello. So you notice all these messages that have just come down where it's showing us that you got some NIC messages. Let's have a look and see if it's allocated any interfaces now. No, still not. Okay, let's have a look at show chassis FPC. Okay, so it's showing that the FPC is present. And let's have a look at the PIC status. I say the PIC status is also present. So sometimes it can take a little while for the interfaces to actually show up. Unfortunately, it's a problem when you're using virtualization. It does take a little while. Let's have a look. Okay. Alright, I'm just going to pause this and we'll come back shortly as soon as everything is ready to go. Okay, it only took a couple of minutes for the routing engine and the packet forwarding engine to communicate with each other properly. As we can see with the show chassis FPC PIC status, the PIC 0 is now online, and it's got the vSRX Giga Ethernet on there, and we can now see we got Giga Ethernet 0, 1 and 2. Alright, yep, that's fantastic. Now if you remember in the beginning, let's go back to add an object, let's go to nodes, and let's go to Juniper. It's only allocated 4 Ethernets. So FPX0, which is a management port as well, that's included. So that's why we only have 3 interfaces that we can play with. You can increase that, as I said before, to whatever you want. So what I've done, I've added a Cisco VIOS image there on Giga Ethernet 00. So what we're going to do, we're going to see if we can ping across. But before we do that, I need to put this from the normal firewall mode into router mode. So let's go into configure, and I'm going to go delete security, and I'm going to go set security forwarding options, family iNet 6 mode packet based, and I'm going to do the same for MPLS, and I'm going to do the same for ISO. Okay, and I'm going to do set system root authentication plain text password, because if you remember at the very beginning, this was amnesiac because it logged us straight into the root shell with no password. So let's pop this on, because we can't save these settings until we do set a root authentication. Okay. Okay, let's commit. This should only take a moment. Okay, so let's configure Giga Ethernet 000 to see if it can ping the Cisco. Okay, that's correct connection. So do set interface GE 0/0/0 unit 0 family iNet. unit 0 family inet. Let's do a question mark to see what we have. So as you can see here, we can do Ethernet switching as well. So if you want to do proper switching, you can do switching on this particular device as well. That's why it comes in quite handy when you're labbing. Like I said, don't worry too much about the speed of it at the moment. This can also be down to my server configuration. I often run these images on other server deployments and they seem to work absolutely fast, so I might have a look at my power settings. Okay, so let's put an address .1/24. Maybe if I typed address in, that would be helpful. Okay, commit and quit. Okay, so the moment of truth, let's have a look and see if we can ping. Let's first have a look at the routing table. Okay, so we can see that we have our local routes in there. 100.100.100.2. Let's see if we can ping, and there we go. We're pinging back and forth. Fantastic. Let's see if we can get a capture going on this, just to double check that it's going over. Oh, I've not put my Docker on. Alright, so we're not doing a capture at the moment, but let's have a look at the vSRX image. And let's do a show IP interface brief. Okay, so that's 100.100.102. Ping 100.100.100.1. Yep, there we go. Everything's great. So as you can see, getting the vSRX image onto the EVE-NG is not too bad. You are obviously free when you're downloading it from Juniper to downgrade to a different version if you want. The version I'm using here is the latest version. However, if you use another version, it will possibly use less resources to run. However, all you need to remember is that when you're making your directory in your EVE-NG via either your terminal or via your FTP client, is that you'll have to make sure you amend the actual name of the folder according to the actual image that you're using. Well, I hope you found this video interesting. The next video we're going to go into, we're going to have a look at the VMX and get that installed.